Welcome back, WNST, Tassel, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. I am, I'm wearing my Cole roofing hat, and I do have very, very little coffee left. My Rofo coffee left here in the mug. I'm transitioning from coffee away at 7 a.m. Each and every day. But Bill Cole comes to me today on Zoom, and we've chatted in so many ways. I mean, I think we've done text, we've done Morse code. I think we've had conversations from across oceans. We've ridden on buses together. But today brings an interesting challenge for a CEO of a really cool company who inspired Baltimore Positive, which is Zoom backgrounds. And I have not at all messed with Zoom backgrounds. I see them all day. I'm much more of an audio guy, as you know. But we're going to take on a serious topic because it's an election week. It's Pittsburgh week. We got things going on. But first things first, when your Zoom doesn't work properly in 2020, you're pretty much screwed, right, Bill Cole?
It's remarkable for as awesome as the technology just was there when the world came calling and everyone just plugged in and, oh, yeah, here we go. And then the minute it doesn't work exactly the way you want it, you lose your mind. And like this morning, I'm coming to you from my pandemic bunker, like in a cave with candlelight and, like preparing for whatever the next turn is that 2020 is going to give us. I'm hunkered down or something.
Dude, I'm not going to make any like Bin Laden cave things or anything, but I will say this, and I brought this up earlier this week, and so it's Pittsburgh week, right? So I know all the Pittsburgh media guys, really well. And I like them all. And this is really the first year where I'm looking at them, right? The first year I'm doing Zoom with them. Usually it's a phone call, and I like them, and I see their houses, and I see their dogs, and we smile, and sometimes their sound is bad, and sometimes their Zoom is good, sometimes their Wi-Fi sucks. So, I get the whole gamut of all of it, but the one thing that we've talked about, and I have not brought this up with Luke yet, but we're 8 weeks into this, and short story long, John Harbaugh was going to come on the show last week. We didn't do it. It was my fault. It totally was my fault that John wasn't on the show last week. But I hate being a journalist talking to these football players on Zoom. It feels like a hostage video in every case. Like they sit there at their little days. It feels like you're talking to them through Russian state radio. It feels like it's terrible. Sports media is terrible on Zoom. I think these things are fun, but I can't. If I had Lamar Jackson on one of these and it was he and I for 12 minutes, maybe we could make it fun. But press conferences on Zoom, they've taken on a whole new cave. The thing that you worry about on Zoom that your hair's not right.
It's not just the fact that like I'm looking at myself. So I'm trying to have a conversation and I'm self-evaluating and I've got all my own dysfunction, that I'm looking at. And oh my gosh, every time I look at myself on Zoom, I'm pretty sure I lost more hair than the time before that. So you have that going on, but at the same time, you have quick tidbits to get with them, right? Like when you're interviewing them in person, it's like one question, they answer, maybe somebody else asks a question, they answer. But, it's kind of quick and soundbitey. Zoom, we might have pleasantries for 5 minutes in the beginning because obviously, my technology will break and it'll sound weird. And then all of a sudden my kid will walk in or da-da-da, like you have all these things. But then if we're going to have an hour-long discussion, about 15 minutes in, most people I find get into the groove a little bit. And they start to be able to just have a fluid back and forth.
It's you and me having coffee outside Rofo, running into each other, whatever it is. These press conferences aren't that on Zoom.
Right.
They're hostage videos. They really
because
are.
you're giving them 5 minutes, right? Like we're not having a discussion on Zoom in a press conference. They're answering questions. And it's hard to tell who it's coming from or, two people talk over one another or maybe the sound wasn't that good or yeah, I mean, it's just so strange.
watch my wife run her, do her engineering on Zoom in the other room now where she's communicating more with some people, less with other people, whatever. But she's on it a whole lot more than maybe she was on calls. And I think there is something about how many fingers am I holding up and this is what my room looks like, and my cat might come in, and my wife might yell for me, or the technology might break down. All of these things that over the last 6 or 7 months, I think we've had to roll with, right? Like, and for me, it's made me sharper, right? Like, I love Baltimore Positive. I love Zooming with people. I love that, like, Ed Bouchette, who's the old crotchety, cranky Pittsburgh sports writer who I was afraid to even talk to for 20 years, will now come on Zoom, and we're going to have a laugh together, because I think there has been, when we were kids, right, it was reach out and touch someone, right? They would make you cry, call your grandmom, call her after 6 p.m. It'll be cheaper and on weekends and all of that, right? The Zoom thing is very, like, in my own business, in my own life, maybe because I'm a communicator at heart to begin with, but I would almost rather write to you because I'm a writer. But the Zoom thing has been awesome for me. I'll Zoom with anybody anytime. I feel very comfortable in the medium, and I think maybe not every introvert would, right? It's certainly not a medium for them.
It can be intrusive, and a lot of people won't turn their cameras on, which is somewhat disappointing at times. If I'm on a call with 4 or 5 people and 3 people have their cameras on and 2 don't, the 3 who have their cameras on definitely provide the visual feedback that they're engaged in the conversation. You're always wondering, the people without their cameras on, whether they're actually paying attention, because they're also muted, right? To be courteous, you mute when you're not talking. So I don't really know if they're there or not, and that is somewhat interesting. I think, to your point about your wife, what we have found is, um, detail-oriented conversations with someone that used to occur on the phone that are now taking place on this, and allows me to share my screen or pull a drawing up
Game
or
changer.
pull a document up. I mean, the speed in which people get to the real problem and can begin, like, I don't have to spend 15 minutes trying to explain to you the problem. Like, well, pull up this drawing and turn to this
Let
page
me
and look at
show
this.
you the problem.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is, and I mean, we've been using FaceTime-esque products in the field for our roofer guys when they're trying to, like, solve problems, or our solar guys. So that concept of having people out on a project, and a project manager sitting in the office who has more, sort of tools, solving that through FaceTime,
Take
and
a
being able to
picture of
show
that. Show
people
me
something.
that on video. Show me that.
Yeah,
Show me
stick
where that wire is. Show me how this
yeah,
is
stick your
connected.
finger in there, pull back on that. Yeah, absolutely.
I
I mean,
love it.
that's a huge leap forward. I mean, we do benefit a lot from that.
Well,
But
and
I do,
also you can show me, the customer, what's on my roof. I have no idea what the hell's up there, and I'm not going to get on a
sure.
ladder. And I just had to wink, wink, trust you back in the neighborhood, Bill Cole is here. He's Cole Roofing. You can trust him. They've been doing it 101 years now. Not the same kind of party in the 101st year you had last year, not all the sappy speeches and all that. But I did enjoy the party. You know what I enjoyed about the party? Actually getting together with people. We
No
can't do
doubt.
that right now. And
No doubt.
we got a football week and we got an election week, and I was going to, aside from Zoom and you having funny backgrounds and your head showing up like Donald Pleasance in Halloween, which I thought was outstanding,
We can
pre-taping.
go to that. Yeah, we
Let
can
me
go to that.
show everybody well, it's getting better because the lighting's getting there, but yeah, it looks a little max headroom, I would say.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's wild. But do you remember, like, in the 80s? I want to say it was the 80s. Like, the idea of video phone calls, that was like some amazing stuff. And I don't know that I fully acknowledge, like, it's almost like a flying car-esque kind of thing. Like, you imagined it when you were a kid, and now all of a sudden it's here, like video calls. Like,
Well, I'll
I think
say
that
this.
is amazing.
My wife, when she was diagnosed in 2014, so 14 would have been 6 years into iPhone, and was over in the cancer center at Hopkins, and the Wi-Fi is not so good there, right? And the reason for that is they have radiation equipment in the basement, right? I like the Cole roofing one. Bring that one back. Let me see that.
Yeah,
Let me see the
I'm just
100-year one
messing.
here.
I'm just messing
You're
with you
playing
because,
around. Is
you know, my cave. I don't think anybody's gonna believe I'm in a cave anymore because the sun's coming up. So that's here you go.
Oh, I
How
like that better. Yeah, that was last
that's
week.
when I need to. That's
That
when
was
I need
bye
to
week.
relax. That's what I need when I relax the person on the other side of
People
the
on the
Zoom.
radio are
You know,
very
it's like,
confused right
just
now, Bill. That's all I'm
relax.
going to say. So yeah, my wife gets ill, and she had just gotten an iPad. They were like new then, and syncing up with the Wi-Fi. And now she goes from blonde to bald to frail to sick to gaunt to through all the phases of this. And watching people come in and out of that hospital, there were people who had support around them physically, like my wife with me and her sister, mother, father, that sort of thing. And then there were people with 3 children from Ashburton, Virginia, who were at Hopkins, 90 miles from home, where the husband had 3 kids at home and the mother-in-law's there. And the FaceTime part, Skype was primarily what we used then. I don't know the Facebook had a video platform yet at the first
Right.
time anyway. But the Wi-Fi was the key, right? If the Wi-Fi was no good, my wife could not say hello to her sister, her cat, me, her father, mother. And the power of that was not lost upon me, Billy. Like I saw it, I felt it with my wife, and the power to show her the cat every night before bed, and it meant something to her, and it kept her alive, and it kept her motivated, and it kept her spirits up. And I thought to myself, oh my God, if you would have had leukemia in 2006, there would have been no Wi-Fi, no iPad, no, no nothing. There might have been call your mom and talk to her.
Sure.
Now you can see her. And I thought what a shame it was. And if I were a billionaire and could click my toes together, not just curing cancer and curing problems and solving racial problems and defeating this monster we elected king 4 years ago, but that's next week's journey. I would say getting Wi-Fi for these patients was like true medicine, like real medicine, that when you see someone and you communicate, and I talked to my college professor, Julie Simon. I did a piece. You can go check it out at Baltimore Positive. She was my college professor in 1991, and there's a really famous Canadian philosopher. His name is Marshall McLuhan. He died back in the 70s. But The Medium is the Message was his book in the 50s and 60s about how these tools would be used to influence things like elections and
Right.
democracy and things like that. And he was a Canadian philosopher, and we studied him briefly back in college, and I brought him up with Julie Simon. And really where we are right now, where we all communicate in these ways, whether it's me on radio, video. I don't know what to say to my wife anymore. I say, I'm going back to do some well, it's not really radio. It's not really a podcast. I'm going to go communicate with some people. I'm going to go talk to some people about some stuff, try to get smarter, on this thing. But from illness and from communication and I always go back to reach out and touch someone, like where you'd pick up and I still have one of these phones here, by the way. I still have an old school dialer phone that I still use. And, but reach out and touch someone. That's Zoom is that in a Willy Wonka way. I don't think any of us could have realized, or what it could have realized for you on a roof and helping someone fix a problem.
Sure. I think it would be interesting along the same lines. It's fun to look back and think, but like, what does a pandemic look like without, cell phones, Zoom, and the internet? I mean,
and processed foods.
We feel, everyone is pretty much on board, like, oh, we've done a terrible job with the pandemic, like, just as a society, like Americans, our values and what we believe in make it very, very hard as a group of people to effectively squash a pandemic, right? We have too much individualism and freedom and spirit, and it's like,
I would call
well,
it
I don't care if that's a good
stupidity,
idea.
but okay. I mean,
It could be, but I mean, I got you. But
if
like,
you're denying the existence of it, or that it's a pathogen, or that 99.9% of the scientists told us about this and warned us this would kill lots of us.
I don't think
that was March 1st prescription. I'm still buying that.
Some percentage of the people recognize that it might kill them they don't maybe respect other humans enough to acknowledge that it's going to kill others and it might not kill them. But in the end, they're like, hey, look, I'm free. If I want to go out and contract the disease and die, I should be able to do that.
Dude, on
So
Tuesday
that
night in Major League Baseball, a player was diagnosed in the middle of the game and then came out to hug and celebrate with teammates in the middle of the field in Texas. I don't know what to say. And Billy, we talked about this a couple months ago. I talked freely about this, right? Go back to China, go back to January where this was on the news, not the lead story at 6:30, but about 6:35, third story in after whatever stupid stuff Trump said that day, or whatever we were on to the economy or the stock market that day. The third story was a bunch of people in white Willy Wonka Mike TV suits showing up in a meat wagon and rolling out grandmom from the 18th floor in Wuhan. Woo, 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 white suits. That's where that was. In America, flash forward 8 months later, it's, I just won the World Series. Come give me a hug. Taste my beard, So that's what happened on Tuesday night. So that's the difference in how the cultures have handled this 8 months later with the same science, the same scientists, dead people all around us, full hospitals all around us, horror stories from every physician, attending, nurse, scientist, all of these people. And this is where the American pastime was on Tuesday night. The Los
hold
Angeles
on,
Dodgers
hold on,
player
hold
being
on,
diagnosed and running around. That
hold
really
on.
happened. I know it's
Number
not The
one,
Onion. That really
no,
happened.
number one, I really did not mean to send you down that rabbit hole, but obviously 2020, you can't have a conversation without somehow
Well,
going
it
there.
involves sports. I'm trying
But
to stick to sports. It happened
I
on Tuesday
understand.
night in the
Look,
World Series.
I believe the premise is wonderful, right? Like this concept that diagnosis occurred and then hugs ensued. That is a strange and problematic situation. I
In the
want to
middle of the
know.
World Series, in the middle of a
Yeah,
celebration,
yeah,
doing
yeah,
the
yeah.
exact
Right.
thing that we've told everybody not to do. Okay,
I
but go
know.
ahead.
But what I want to do is there were a couple things that you just went through there that I need clarification on. Like you said the hospitals are full. I don't think that's true. Is that
It is in
true?
Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Okay. Okay. Like
The
part of
word
me.
on this from the beginning would be that if it gets to the suburbs, there would not be enough medical attention to handle North Dakota and South Dakota and Kansas because there aren't enough beds and respirators and ventilators and all of the PPP in the beginning, right?
No,
But those
no.
are all of the issues that if it hit everywhere all at once, right? Like it did
Sure.
Manhattan or it did
Sure.
Wuhan, or
It
it did
doesn't
parts
even.
of Italy, that would happen, that it would then segment. It was look, man, this thing was politicized in the beginning as something that was only going to affect the blue people. And now South Dakota and North Dakota are affected. And now there's an election going on. We'll see how it turns out next week now, or next
So,
month, or whenever the Supreme Court gets around to it, I guess, in December. But the fact that people are sick and dying, dude, I'm connected to a lot of people. You can't convince me people aren't dying because I have too many friends who've lost parents. Period.
no, I don't. I don't want to. I don't. I'm not. My interest is not to convince you of anything, right? What my challenge and what I try and do with myself and my friends and my wife and all these people that I intersect with is like, let's sort through the data so that we can actually go out into the universe with like factual good footing, right? Because it's very
Assessing our
easy.
own risk. I agree with
It's
that.
very easy. Well, and not just our own, but like the consequences that we can impact for others. Because I do believe that that's the primary challenge of this pandemic is like, I don't really think you and I should be afraid, but definitely should be careful not to infect someone 70 years old because it very well could kill them. So like that much of the data, I think there's lots of like ironclad concrete data on that. And the actions of our leadership tell me that we're really not interested in squashing the pandemic, right? Like that's not our primary goal. Our primary goal is to appease enough of the populace so that we don't lose office, right? Like that's the line that they
Clearly.
are walking. Yeah,
Clearly.
because like right now, if okay, let me take the most vulnerable population strategy, right? Like let's talk about that. So if it's okay for us to send our college kids to campuses because, well, we really don't think anything bad's going to happen. And then you hear someone tell a story and sort of extrapolate that, like, sure, send all the kids, it's all good, they all get it, they hurry up, they get done their semester, Thanksgiving comes, they send them all back home into our communities, and they spread like wildfire through the communities because they're asymptomatic or whatever. And that's not that hard of a concept to understand. And I don't
Conceptually, this has been studied by scientists in modern medicine, in modern society, through Ebola, through all of these things. It was disconnected in 2018 by the current president of the United States. And from the beginning of this, the scientists were very, very clear that the shutdown was designed to eliminate the virus and needed to be heeded by everyone, by humanity. And this was a concept that in places in the Far East was better embraced either through authoritarianism, which I am not recommending in any way, government policy,
that's that's
or
a
just
that's a
into
bad
some,
American strategy. That's a
or
bad American strategy.
well, if the other American strategy is to not shut down and then allow the virus to do what the virus does, which is what Fauci said in the beginning, which is it will do whatever it wants to do, and we will manage
Right.
around it, right? Like, and that is ask the Tennessee Titans, ask the Miami Marlins. I mean, everybody asked the
But
White
that's
House 3 weeks ago, right? Like everybody's had to manage around it. The best thing to do, though, is to wear a mask, wash your hands, stay away from people, and not get it, and therefore not give it to anyone. And
sure.
adhering
My
to
problem
that, so far, so good for me, I think. But I do think I got it last year. I think I had it before anybody knew what it was because I was in Asia. But and my wife got deathly ill, and I got pretty ill, and all of that. So I think we
go take
had it.
go take an antibody test. Go take an antibody test.
Yeah,
I
well, and
think
I'm going to
everybody
trust
feels
what?
like that.
50-50,
Right.
maybe it might be right?
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody feels like that. My wife was
I'd
sick
rather
in
have a
late
100%
February.
conversation with you than a 50% antibody test.
I get it.
Yeah.
I look, the fact that the strategy was send everybody home and we'll squash it. Like, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to realize that some percentage of America isn't going to listen to that. Like, they don't some percentage of America doesn't listen to anything. So, and isn't that like either a pass fail option, right? Like either everyone goes home and we squash it, but if one dude leaves his house, runs down to the grocery store and like
But if
whatever,
the
like
dude who's leading the culture calls it a hoax, day one, denies the existence of it while telling Bob Woodward that he knew how bad it was, then I'm hoping I don't wake up next week and have that person be the leader of this country anymore after all we've been through the
my
last 6 months. And that's my politicization,
I understand.
politicization of it as I wear my Getty Lee Major League. Billy
Right.
Cole's here, Cole Roofing and Gordy Energy. Tell me what you do, and then you can get back on any political rant you want to be on because
No, I
really
don't
is
want to
what
have a
this election's
political rant.
about. This election is about what are we going to do now? What are we going to do now?
Yeah.
That's what this election is because the virus is here and it's affected you,
Easiest
me, and everybody else.
I know. Easiest way to describe what I do is to do a virtual background. We do solar panels, we do roofing, like what is it? Pictures are worth 1,000 words. So um we really just like to help people solve problems, and I got really great people,
Is
and
that a
I would
school? What is
encourage.
that? It looks like a
Yeah,
school, yeah?
that's the school. Yep.
Okay.
Uh so that's what we do. I don't want to politicize this, right? What I'm trying to do is, because it's easily politicized and everybody's information gathering is politicized. The challenge for people like us is to help everyone sort through the mess and figure out what is real, you know? and I guess my problem with the strategy of even with what you just said, right? Like he claims it's a hoax. A couple weeks later, we shut everything down. If
Then
you
he
know that the
contracts it.
if you know that the underlying comment is it's a hoax, then you know nobody's going to stay home. Like nobody stayed home.
Well, I did. Of course, my wife's almost died twice, so I have a little
And
bit
you,
of,
that and your
insight into that.
life allows you to.
Correct.
So,
I didn't have to drive a
we
bus
appreciate
or
you as an American. Thank you. Right, right. So,
work at Wise Markets. I mean, I got you, man. I mean, that's why those people were portrayed as heroes and treated as such. That's why every one of us said thank you. And the virus is far worse now than it was in March and April when we took all of those measures and we're so kind to each other and thank you. And now we're all just out in it, right? Like literally out in it.
why do you say it's far worse now?
I think it's much more prevalent than just in New York City, or it's in South Dakota now. The virus is
Okay.
everywhere in the country. On April 3rd, I'm pretty sure the maskless walking around Montgomery, Alabama, there wasn't COVID there. It's there now. That's
You
why it's
are
far
okay.
worse because it's far more prevalent. It's in all 50 states. It
I
wasn't on April 1st.
I totally agree that it's more greater
You're more
widespread.
likely to
But you're
contract it today anywhere in America than you were 6 months ago.
I don't have data on that, but I would inherently agree, right?
Okay, fair enough.
I would inherently agree with that.
But if you're
What I,
wearing a
what I,
mask and staying 6 feet away and washing your hands
yeah,
and
well,
not
and what
touching
I'm
stuff, then you're cool.
but what I want to challenge you on is you use the word worse, right? And for someone that's talking to you or listening to you, worse has a different meaning than wider spread, more likely to
How
contract.
about this? The risk is
You know what I
higher
mean?
now. That I'll take away worse, okay? The
No, hold
risk is
on.
higher now. I believe that.
The risk is higher to contract it. I agree. I don't know because nobody will tell us whether the risk is higher to have bad outcomes.
Okay. I would
You
think
know
the
what I'm
medicine
saying?
has gotten better, that
Hell yeah.
getting a
It's
better outcome now versus February. When my wife went into Hopkins with something still unidentified and they couldn't figure out what it was, and she was in the emergency ward
right,
twice,
right.
that whatever that if today she contracts that and goes over there, they would say, "Oh, this is COVID. This is a treatment. Go home in 10 days. We'll get you better. We'll check your heart." Right? I mean, I would think there's a better chance of that now than
I do
7 months ago.
I do too. Like I mean, say all the bad stuff about America. What I choose to believe about America
I love
is
America.
right, we have the greatest healthcare professionals in the world. We have the smartest scientists, we have the smartest, disease
Now, if we could just get the
people and
population to
researcher,
catch up,
but that's never
to
going to
just
happen.
buy what they're selling, listen to what they're
Yeah, I don't know.
saying,
Right.
but believe in their integrity, believe in their education, believe in their wisdom, and
So I
have
so
leaders who do that. That's
so the
important.
majority of people who are resisting are probably not resisting in what I'm about to say, right? Like I think the majority of people are resisting because we're Americans and we have revolutions and it's just in our DNA to be contrarian and to push back and blah blah blah. But like the strategy of everyone staying home is a flawed strategy in our society. It works in Korea, it works in China, it works in places where people walk around with machine guns and tell people what to do. it, they can't, and fortunate for us, it appears that this disease is most affecting the older population. So where's the strategy that helps protect them, right? And then balances the rest of our activities in light of wanting to protect that group.
That's the masks. And stay home when you can, and eat outside, and don't gather in indoor spaces. And Don't go to football games. And uh, when you contract COVID, don't go back into the baseball game onto the field and celebrate without a mask with other people.
No, see, but my problem with that is I believe that's, um, for lack of a better term, that's a lazy solution, right? The lazy solution is tell everyone to wear masks, tell everyone who can stay home to stay home, don't let anyone hug.
Well, the real solution is a vaccine, right? Like smallpox, right? Like,
But we're not there, right? So we got to do intermittent work until we can get there. But what I'm saying is, I don't know that because that baseball player hugged them and jumped and celebrated, that there will be any bad outcomes from that. I
well, we've all
believe
been warned to not do it. That bad outcomes
I
come
agree.
from
It's
that.
stupid. It sets a bad example. I agree with all of that. But what I'm saying is, if all those people in that circle test positive and none of them go to the hospital, what are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about what the people they would then in the circle infect and wouldn't even know it. No,
Okay,
when people
so that's
get
the
COVID,
bubble.
they mostly don't even know where they got it
I agreed. It's
because
totally out of control. It's totally out of control.
we did
Yeah,
not test. We did not
totally
have
out of
people in
control.
white suits come. It's totally out of control. Okay, fair enough.
Right. Can't even hope of doing contact tracing because the number of people that you come in contact with is so great and so large.
Which
Go
made
to
us lazy
stop.
as a society because every scientist told us that if this were to happen, that would be the best way to do it. And oh, by the way, thank God we have the technology. Oh, but that would make us free. So we have the
Right.
technology to do whatever we want to do except stop a plague.
So I'm not interested in complaining about our inability to do these effective things because it doesn't help us get to better solutions. Americans aren't going to change today. And I need to figure out a way. I don't, obviously, because
We, we,
all I need to do is figure out commercial roofing and solar. But somebody needs to figure out how to manage it with Americans the way they are today, right? And to me, we're putting the bubble around the wrong people. Like we put a bubble around NBA players just so we could have an NBA and show people on television because we're all home and we need something to watch. That's totally baloney. Put a bubble around my grandparents. Put a bubble around the people who have underlying health conditions. Protect them, right? I mean, is that off base?
as I sit here and wait for Steelers and Ravens on Sunday,
Yeah, right on,
yeah,
brother.
yeah, yeah, I hear
Our
you.
life is just, I don't know. I just, sometimes, like, here's
You're
another
not going to the
simple
game
thing.
Sunday, right?
No, I'm not. Here's
If I
another
gave you
simple
tickets, would you
thing.
go?
Um, More than likely not, because I had already in my life pre-COVID started to transition where the couch was just so comfortable and my house was that I wasn't going a lot anymore. Um, so
You're
no, I
watching,
probably.
though.
Oh yeah, sure,
Oh, okay. All
sure,
right. Everybody's
sure.
watching. Okay.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
That's all you
Uh,
got for me? No football, no
oh,
more
I know what.
football?
I know what it was. Here, last one.
Okay.
Last one.
Go ahead.
Um, I'm not inherently big, obviously, through this discussion on the government attempting to tell us what to do and control us, right? Like I'm not a big fan of that. My question is,
I don't know that most Americans are, right? So I
I
would
don't think
agree with that.
so, right? Yeah,
But
I
in the
don't think
middle of a
so.
plague where scientists are telling you and the
Sure,
rest of the world is doing it, there needs to, if you're not going to fall in line with that, then we're going to have a plague. And then we're
but
going to have the results of the plague for all of
it's
us.
and in that circumstance, for me, it's a decision, right? Like I believe that the president and the Senate and the governor have access to better information than I do. So I trust that they're going to come up and tell me that information and tell me what that information suggests we do. So in that light, I think that it was a significant disservice for our leadership to not stand up and suggest how to handle Halloween. Like Halloween is such not a big deal in the grand scheme of our lives. Like I understand it's important to kids, but it is causing, I have seen it and am hearing about it, causing pretty significant, like, unnecessary human rifts because one family is in one spot and another family's in another spot, and do you want to trick or treat? Do you not want to trick or treat? Do we put the candy by the thing? And these things are not life or death, right? Like, this is not important. We don't really need to be worried about this right now. Like,
But I don't want
check,
your kid knocking on my door right now.
yeah,
No offense. You know, I
no, I
mean,
get
my
it.
house is not open for Halloween this year. There's a plague.
I get it. That's what I'm saying. But then someone right down the street from you are saying, hell
I'm
yeah, let's go
American. It's
trick or
Halloween.
treating.
We do Halloween every
Right,
year. I'm going to knock on your damn
right.
door. Well,
Exactly.
we don't
And
get a
all I'm
Milky Way
saying
up in
is,
here, you know?
like, with Zoom and all that, if
You'll
Halloween
get
would
a
have happened
Snicker,
in,
but not a Snickers.
right, if Halloween would have happened in April, what would we have
I'm
done?
funny to me.
Right? What would we have done in April if Halloween was in April? People would have done it on the Zoom. They'd have ordered their candy from Amazon, and people would have gone on with their life. And it
My
wouldn't have been a big deal.
my son and his wife and my wife, we've come up with this great costume we were going to do as a foursome this year. And we decided, nah. I mean, we were just going to get, like, dialed up and go down to Fells Point. Nah.
Right.
We're not going to do it. We're not even going to do it on Zoom, So we just figured we'll save it for the next time we can go to, like, the Science Center to Dave Rather's big, party down there, next year after.
Sure.
We can all hug each other. But, sitting this one out has been a tough thing for everybody, right? Sitting out the beach, sitting out the weddings. I mean, my wife has missed the guy who saved her life's wedding twice this summer, right? Like, sitting out the football game, whatever you're sitting out this year. Halloween will just be the next thing, and then the Thanksgiving's coming in 3 weeks, and then the holidays. My wife's already on the, if I have to sequester 14 days in quarantine in New Hampshire, I'm going to spend Christmas with my father. He's 75, and my sister has MS, and so people have that feeling, right? And Halloween's just this week, bro. I mean, and the election, by the way. There's a little election. I don't know. Did you vote?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I'm gonna vote in person.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah.
I ballot boxed up at the at Camden Yards last week. So, and I got my email and all of that. I've checked out my thing.
Yeah. I mean, I hope I'm not making a mistake by trying to go in person. But my opinion is, if I wear a mask and I socially distant, I don't anticipate having to stand in line for 7 hours. But if I show up and there's a serious line,
This is America, Bill. You never know.
Right. I don't know. So I don't know.
I don't think anybody knows, because I think more people are going to vote just in general than have ever voted or considered voting before, which really speaks to at least the awakening of the American people to the fact that who we elect matters. It does matter. Maybe you don't feel like you really can affect it or that your vote matters, but it matters. The outcome matters. I think we can all agree on that, no matter what our politics are, right?
Well, there's 2 questions for Marylanders on the ballot that, even if the only thing you do is go and vote for those questions, one is around how the budget gets dealt with from the governor to the Maryland Congress. So I'm sure on the actual ballot, the question is written in a way that no normal human being can actually comprehend what they're asking us, because that's how they choose to write them. So you've got to do a little bit of research to figure out whether you are for it or against it. And then the other one, I think, is a little bit more cut or dry, in that the proceeds from sports gambling should
Yeah, I've seen
go
all
to
the ads for
education.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that one seems pretty simple. I'm sure it's not, right? Every one of these questions is nuanced.
The money's going to help your kid go to school, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it seems. It sure seems like that. And all I'm saying is, so this stuff about my vote doesn't count. Well, yeah, it does, because they actually do referendum questions like that, and
it's your job to pay attention.
It's your job. Yeah, it's. Do you want to have a say on how the state is governed? Do you or not? Like,
every couple of years you get a chance. This week is the chance. So, Well, look, dude, I hope you don't have a long line. And, this was a deeply, disturbing conversation.
My
Hey,
biggest
these are the
problem
kinds of
is
conversations that citizens need to have, though, right? Literally, right?
yes, and even now, and I know we have to wrap, but like we may have done more of a disservice than a service
Why?
because,
What did we do?
well, we just created further confusion, right? Because I'm thinking back to what I said, and the comment about Halloween is like, do we really need to have Halloween? Like maybe the better plan is to just not have Halloween. But at the same time, I'm saying I don't think there's going to be a bad outcome for any of the Dodgers, right? And like, as long as you're not trick or treating with your 75-year-old grandmother, it's probably going to be okay, right? Don't go see grandma after Halloween for a couple days. Like I don't know. Like we have to get better at living with it to be able to make good decisions because we might be able to have a safe Halloween, but nobody knows the rules. Nobody knows what they should do.
Someone who knows they have COVID running around without a mask and hanging out with people is a jackass. And I don't care what color he's wearing, what hat he's wearing, what
Yeah, well, that's
nationality,
borderline
race.
criminal,
That is
right?
just
That's
sheer
borderline criminal,
effing ignorance.
right? That's borderline criminal, right?
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
borderline
So
criminal.
I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to jump off that. Yeah. That's all. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just thinking about like some reporter that's down there, covering it, or anybody who's going to hug their grandmother 5 minutes later, whatever, like,
But that
yeah.
situation is very specific to the fact that we assume that guy knows. There's a bunch of other people in the field that know that guy's tested positive, and
The
he just
whole
runs up.
America knew. They took
Yeah,
him out of the
and
game.
he just runs on up in there, and yeah. So like, how does that interpret for the people who don't know? Should we operate like we might have it?
I operate like everybody has it, and it's terrible that I don't want to be near anyone and I offend people, and it's cool. You're getting maybe an elbow. I'd rather not even bother with the elbow. I'd rather just, do one of these or hi, or, what they do in Asia? They bow, they make eye
Right,
contact, they
right.
smile, hi, like those kinds of things. So I try to do a little bit more of that, and, give a little bit more love on text, as you're aware
Yeah.
of, Bill.
No, I'm gonna let that sort of be our landing point, right? So today, where we are, you're gonna operate like everybody has it, which I totally respect and think you should have a red wristband, right? Like you should have a red wristband. And then someone else has a yellow
Yellow,
wristband
right? A
and someone
green.
else has
I'm
a
with you.
green. Yeah.
I
I mean,
like that. That's a great way to delineate at a cocktail party. Yeah, that's
well,
good.
it's just how
It's like a
to
Brazilian
communicate with you.
steakhouse. That's
Well,
enough.
it's how to, right. It's how to communicate with you, right? Like I totally respect that this is how you feel, but nobody knows. And then people,
By
I
the
don't know,
way, I had
very
Garrett
smart.
Downing on this week from the Ravens, and he works in Owings Mills. I asked him what tier. He held up his thing. He's down tier 2. I said, "What does that mean?" He's like, "That means I can like wear a mask and be 6 feet from the players because we're in the same building." But like, no, he said, "But I have a wristband here, and it goes off if I get 6 feet away from anybody." And I'm like, that's it's very Jetsons, but that's the way the Ravens as an organization, because they have millions and billions of dollars at stake to get to the football field on Sunday, and they can't have their media reporter getting their quarterback sick because he's pile diving like a baseball player. This is the lengths that the Ravens are going to stay safe, and I think that I respect that, and I want to respect that in my own way without having to wear a wristband. That societally, when I'm in the supermarket or whatever, I'm the guy giving way, much like I do when I drive. When I
Sure,
drive, go ahead, get in. Go
sure.
in front
Yep,
of me. It's fine. I'm
yep,
not in a hurry.
yep,
Um,
yep.
but I have seen people not respect space, and we all have, and we've all been out in the last 6 months. But I've seen much more respect than lack of respect by a lot. By a lot. I mean, I've seen the better part of humanity for the most part during my COVID experience, for the most part.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I mean, there's some percentage of the population appears to be like spiraling up, right? And like the longer this goes on, the more things people are impacted, the harder the financial worsening gets, you know. So it's like you're never out of the woods, you know. We're turning the corner on something. Like I'll agree, we're turning the corner on something. I don't know
Well,
what's
we have
around the
an
corner.
election. Something's, you know, there politically, and this, you know, people are voting. That's what we do in this country, and I guess that's why this conversation's been so friggin' heavy, right? Because the next time we
Yeah.
get together, there's going to be something, right? Like, I don't, some sort of outcome next week of that, and I think we all feel the weight of that
The
in
way
the
I
middle
the
of a
way
plague and all of that, but just the weight of something's going to change here in whatever way, right?
No, not for me. That's not
Okay.
my position is totally, I just want it to be over. I could care less who wins. It just needs to be over. The amount of energy that this country is exhausting on multiple levels make it virtually impossible, right, for people to find any happiness.
It's like the
Like
opposite of the holidays, right?
it
Like
it's
literally, right?
it's it's so overwhelming, and I believe that's part of why I feel so exhausted all the time. Is like in the back of your head, there's this, you know, the election, and you know, in the back of your head, right, there's always the pandemic. So there's these two things that are always there that in normal times are not knowing, whether subconsciously or consciously or whatever, they're just not there.
Well, remember, we used to get together and just talk about football and stuff. Next
That's
week
not
we'll do that.
that
It's
sounds so
Steelers
boring.
week, dude. I
That
mean,
sounds
at
so
least
boring.
at least Sunday at 1, we're gonna have some football. Bill Cole is
I
here.
can't I can't quite figure out how they're doing it, to be honest with you, which is sort of what scares me about the game, right? Like it's easier to respect them when it's Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell and Ben. Like I
Who
got
the hell's
Deontay,
Chase Claypool?
I got Deontay, what's his name, the one receiver on my fantasy team, and he's terrible. I sat him on my bench last week. Had a great week. He's terrible. I don't get it, right? Juju, not good. So I mean, he was good, but he's not having a good season. So I don't really know how they're doing it.
We'll
I guess they're
find out
playing
at 1 o'clock
defense.
on Sunday. I thought the
Yeah, I
same
guess
thing
they're
last
playing
week when I sat
defense.
on the couch with some Rofo chicken, and I'm like, you know, Pittsburgh and Tennessee get to hate on the Steelers. Oh, they're up 14-0. What? You know, let's
Yeah,
go to red
right,
zone. So,
right,
hey,
right,
dude, next week
right.
we'll try not to be so heavy, man. Maybe, you know, I've talked about so many different issues this week, from politics and even insurance and life and Steelers and cancer and all of this stuff. But at some point, we're just going to talk about food. I mean, I did a whole thing on Burke's onion rings earlier this week, so I did keep it a little light.
Well, what I can absolutely confirm, and I see your Taharka in the background there, is the pumpkin cheesecake specialty flavor that they have right
Crazy.
now.
I'm about to eat it.
Ooh my. Like you got to kind of dig pumpkin pie and all that stuff, but it is a nice little change of pace. I can't possibly shove any more of the honey graham in my mouth, so I'll go with the pumpkin cheesecake right now.
All
So,
right. Well, peanut butter cup's not bad as well,
oh, I
but
love that one too. Yep.
I'm talking to them about allowing me to be a part of being the urn guy on the eggnog. So that's good. That's my little request from Taharka, is that when you make the eggnog, I want to be there that day, because I love eggnog. So that's the specialty flavor I'm with. I love the pumpkin. Have you had the pumpkin latte or just the cheesecake?
Mm, just the
The
cheesecake.
pumpkin latte is really, really good too. It's got swirls of
How about,
cream in it. It's
can we
crazy.
talk them in? Can we talk them into like a peppermint? Because I would do that. I would, if they were going to make peppermint the same day they made
This is
eggnog.
peppermint right here.
Well, no,
Netflix
I
and
need,
chills.
that's got chocolate in it. We got to go like a Christmas kind of peppermint, right? Like, what do you do with the peppermint
Peppermint
in
stick.
Christmas?
You're just talking about.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
Man,
Holly. Can we make a holly
I'm
flavored
throwing you
one?
off the show now for not liking chocolate. I mean, you know what I mean? You start
Oh no, I
talking about
love
taking the
chocolate.
chocolate out. We're in the middle of
I
a
love
plague here,
chocolate.
Mike, for crying out loud. Don't take the chocolate out, put more chocolate
You're
in,
right.
for crying out loud.
This has totally eroded, and it's not go for as much good as we may have done earlier. I do appreciate everything you're doing, and I think the more and more you can have conversations about a broad spectrum of things, people will continue to lean on you for that information. And I think that's an awesome deal, man.
Even when they disagree with me like you do most of
Yeah,
the time.
absolutely. Right,
Mhm.
right. It's not about that. It's just about having the conversation. So I appreciate you for that, man.
I'm glad the sun came up and the light got better in your Zoom. So,
Yeah, that's funny.
Bill Cole, Cole Roofing and Guardian Energy. Go to Cole Roofing and find him. Go to BaltimorePositive.com and find us.